I have here an Akai AS 1080dB. This is a 4-channel Dolby receiver. It's a quad receiver. This is from the days before we had Dolby Digital and all those other. This is a pure analog amplifier. It's going to have Dolby FM on it. Yep, it has a Dolby system, so you can set it up for Dolby FM. It also has Dolby Record and Play. So if you were connected to, say, a reel-to-reel tape deck that did not have noise reduction, you could use the noise reduction built into this amplifier. Select record and it will pre-emphasize the signal going out the record outs, and then on playback you would switch it to playback and it would de-emphasize using the Dolby B response curve. I'm sure it's Dolby B that they used on this. Anyway, this is a 4-channel unit. I have no idea whether it works or not. This one's in for repair. I'm going to plug it in and check it out and see what it does. Just look at the power consumption of this beast. 450 watts is the amount of power that this thing draws. So you know that this thing's going to have, you know, it's probably going to push, I'm going to guess, I don't know, I haven't looked up the specs here, it's probably 80 watts, maybe to 100 watts per channel. But it's going to be real old school power. None of this 500 watt, you know, amplifier that's the size of, I don't know, a VHS tape. If you remember what they look like. That says 500 watts, right? Yeah, good luck with that. This is old school power. It's got a big power transformer in it. Check out the inputs and outputs on the back of this thing. This thing also weighs a ton. So we have our AM bar antenna. But here's our inputs on the back and outputs. So you got a ground input for your turntable. You've got the phono input, and it accepts the CD4 standard. That was for the 4-channel vinyl discs that were encoded into 2 channels. You've got auxiliary in, left and right, front and rear. Your tape input, front and rear, for record and play. There's 2 sets of tape inputs. Your FM 4-channel output, that's for FM broadcast. FM actually did have a method of transmitting 4-channel audio at one point. It required a separate outboard decoder because the stereo signal was encoded onto the 38 kilohertz standard stereo subcarrier. The 4-channel different signal was actually encoded up at a much higher frequency, typically 57 or 67 kilohertz in the SCA band. And that was sent out here. So with this 4-channel output, what's interesting about a receiver like this is you could plug it into an SCA decoder. And I built a couple of those years and years ago. I don't know whatever happened to them. I think it was based on an LM. I think it was an LM357, but don't quote me on that because it was like, you know, 30 odd years ago I built this thing. But I actually had an SCA decoder, and I had an old Panasonic, still probably have the radio kicking around here, that had an FM discriminator output, which is what this is. And I could plug that SCA decoder in and pick up the commercial-free music channels that were offered at the time, which was basically your Muzak service, right, that was sent to stores and restaurants and stuff that subscribed to the service. And these signals were carried on regular FM broadcast transmitters. Now that spectrum now, for the most part, is pretty much non-existent because the spectrum that was being used for SCA is now, at least in North America, is being used for the in-band on-channel digital HD broadcast. So when you've got that new FM radio or that new car radio and it has HD radio on it, and you can say tune in your favorite FM station and it'll say HD1 and the sound just pops like it's listening to a CD, and you can pick up other programming on HD2 and HD3 and so forth. Well, that is the subcarriers that were being used for the 4-channel and SCA broadcasts. Anyway, that's this beast. It's all wood cabinet on this thing. Let's get the top off it. As you can see, this thing's got a good sized power transformer in here. That'll put out a few watts. I'm corrected on the power output on it. It's 60 watts per channel. And an amplifier like this can be run in 2-channel mode or 4-channel mode. When it's run in 2-channel mode, you would get probably 110 watts per channel. I don't think you'd get quite 120 out of it. But, and here's some of the circuitry in here. got nice discrete components. And if you look at the back here, well, we're seeing power modules. Sanken 60-watt power modules. This has got to be one of the first receivers that I've seen that used them. What do we got here? What is this? What the heck? Somebody's been into this thing. There's wires that are just cut and just like, you can see it looks like this one's been cut up. One of these has been cut. Where am I? From some of these stakes down here, you can see a wire that's just kind of, you know, this one looks like it's been cut. And there's another one, if I go over here a bit, here's another one here. Looks like one's been cut off of here. Like somebody's been into this unit, and there's another one over here. Somebody's been into this unit. They say this was brought to me from one of my clients. He's a collector of vintage audio, and he's picked this up from someone, but you know, somebody's been into this unit. Now, before I even hook speakers up to this thing, because I don't want to risk blowing my speakers to smithereens if this thing's not working, I'm going to listen to it with headphones. This is going to be one that I am going to actually use my soft start, plug it into my light bulb, and I've got the light bulb plugged directly in, so I won't put this on the isolation transformer, just because the inrush current on this is probably going to pop the fuse in my Variac, and it's 450 watts, so it's a little more power than my Variac is capable of delivering. So I've got to plug straight in to my current limiter, so when I hit the power switch on this thing, we'll probably see that light bulb glow a little bit here. I'll lower the camera down so we can get a shot of the light bulb in the background as I hit the power switch. There we go. That's what, you see, when it's idling it doesn't take much power. But that's why it's a good idea to have a light bulb in series, so that when you've got something big like this, it does a couple things. One, it prevents inrush current, because when those capacitors are charging, this thing's going to draw full current until the capacitors charge up. So that's going to limit the amount of power that this thing gets. It's just good. If we had a short, for example, and this thing drew full power constantly and that light bulb stayed bright, I would know that we really had a problem. And I know I shouldn't have to probably say this to you guys, but you know, if you could turn your ad blockers off when you're watching my channel, I really would appreciate it. The only way I can keep the channel running is if I can continue to make revenue off of YouTube. And my views are up. My views are up, but my revenue is down by about 50%. So that only means one thing. People aren't seeing the ads. And if I can't make any revenue off the channel, then I won't be making as many videos. It's quite simple as that. Also, lately I've had a run-in with YouTube a bit when I did a couple of videos demonstrating how to load up Kodi boxes. I've been hit with a couple copyright claims. One for showing the 20th Century Fox logo, of all things. If you've seen that video, I think I've gotten quite vocal about it in the comments on the video when I've had to re-edit it. But YouTube has gotten quite aggressive lately for everything. I mean, come on. Showing the logo at the beginning of a film, the 10-second logo with the 20th Century Fox spotlight turning around got me a strike. Okay, got the headphones on here. Let's just see whether this thing does anything. I have no sound whatsoever. I can see the tuner. It says stereo. I have no sound, nothing. And I have a feeling that these wires that are disconnected here are probably the power supplies for the 4 outputs. And I bet you this was at another shop, and they've diagnosed the 4 output modules as being foobar and sent it on its way, and the guy that owns this bought it from someone on Craigslist untested, and he's probably not going to be able to get this thing fixed. I mean, even if I could get the parts for this thing, which are probably not good, it's probably going to be too expensive. But let's just do some voltage tests here and see whether I'm getting any power. And I'm curious as to whether I got to get a new negative lead here. I bet you that's the those pink wires are the positive and negative supplies for each of these, and someone's cut them off because there's a short. It looks like one went there, one went there, and I can see where they've removed them. One's been taken from there, and there's another one from there, and one from there, and one from there, and one from there, and the other one from over here. I can kind of see where they all went, so I have a sneaking suspicion that somebody else worked on this thing and condemned it, and the person who owned it just found someone to buy it and didn't tell them that it didn't work. And unfortunately, that happens. There are people out there that do that. So, meter on. Let's just check for some voltages here. Put it on ground here and see whether we get any juice on this thing. 35 volts, yeah, that's the 35 volt supply. And this one's going to be the negative 35 volt supply, I guarantee you. Negative 35, yep. That's exactly what's happened. The outputs on this thing are popped, and they're shorted, and someone's already determined that, and that's why it's disconnected. And that's going to be the 35 and the negative 35 for this module. That's going to be the 35, and that's going to be the negative 35 for that one. That's going to be the 35, and that's the negative 35 for that one. And that's going to be the 35 and the negative 35 for that module. Unfortunately, at this point, I'm putting this unit back together. I'm going to call the owner of it and let him know the bad news. I think it's fairly unlikely that we're going to be repairing this one. For starters, because I don't think I'm going to stand much chance in finding any of these Sanken modules. This unit goes back to the 1970s. That's when quad systems were around, was the 1970s, and I haven't seen, in my entire career, I started in 1984, and I worked in the business from 1984 to 2003, and in my 20 years, I never saw any of these Sanken modules. I never had to replace one. I saw a lot of the Sanyo STK modules that were out there of the day, but I never saw these Sanken modules, so they're not a common part. And just because of the age of this thing, I think finding one is going to be next to impossible. You know, I could reconnect those leads and just try powering this thing up with my resistive load on it and just see what happens. We got nothing to lose, right? Okay, the 4 wires are reconnected here. Let's hit the power button and watch the light light up real bright. See, it's going a lot brighter now. We still have no output. I'm watching the meters here, there's still nothing. When you can't find a schematic, sometimes you have to draw your own. This is the internal workings of a Sanken S60W, and an S40 is the 40 watt equivalent. Same unit. It's a Darlington output, so we have 4 transistors in here. And here's our pin out. Yes, I found the schematic, but I was unable to print it. I tried to print it up on my printer, and it said, cannot print this image. Something about copyright. Anyway, believe it or not, Windows would not allow me to print it, so I just drew it off the screen. Got 4 diodes between the inputs. Here's your inputs come in pin 2 and 6. Darlington output. Pin 4 is the output that goes to the speakers, so let's just check for any voltages going in and what's coming out of this thing. Should be able to get my probe down through here. Pin number 4 is right down there, and when I apply power, I have 29 volts DC on pin 4. That module's foobarred. 1, 2, 3, pin 4 is this one right down here. Gotta get in there. That one's shot. That one might not actually be shot. That one actually might work. What about this other one over here? And that one, it might actually work too. I wonder what would happen if I disconnected these two channels. Because it looks like these ones have got a DC voltage on the speaker terminals. So if I disconnect these two, will the unit work as a 2-channel amp? Let's find out. Okay. 2 of them are disconnected. We're not drawing the current anymore. You notice the light bulb's not glowing super bright. The relays may not kick in. Oh, a relay just kicked in. Okay, will we get any sound? Probably nothing out of the main speaker terminal, the speakers. You can hear the relays clicking now. I wonder. We probably won't get any sound because these are going to be the rear channels, and normally in 2-channel mode, 4-channel mode I might get something if I apply an input to the rear inputs on auxiliary. I might get something out of them. In 2-channel mode I definitely won't, because 2-channel mode it's going to use all 4 of them and put them in the bridge mode. But I might be able to get something if I put it in 4-channel mode like that. I may be able to get something out of the rear speakers if I feed it into the auxiliary. It doesn't help the fact that the amplifier is not going to work without all 4 modules, though, just the way that it's configured. Unless you're actually using it in quadraphonic mode, it actually uses both of the amplifiers. It uses one side for your left channel and one side for the right channel. So we're still at a lost cause. I'm just curious as to whether I can get some sound out of the rear speakers. So let's try it. All the modules are shot. I can get some sound out of it. If we put the headphones up here, you'll hear there is some noise, but all 4 modules are cooked on this thing. So I'm going to say that this is a lost cause, because I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell of ever finding working modules for one of these units. The only chance you'd ever finding modules for this would be to find poles. And well, we know how much luck I've had with poles. I'm still trying to get the STK, is it a 0030 I think it is, for that Yamaha mixing board. And I've had no luck finding working ICs for that. So thanks for watching. I gotta break the bad news to this guy, but this one's not going to be repairable. But hey, you win some, you lose some, right? And this is just one of the ones that we couldn't do anything for. Time to put this one out of its misery. Thanks for watching.